Hey, this is sort of a related subject, and it just came to me to sort of talk about this because I've watched a few things recently, some of which is sort of rerun stuff, retreading past experiences that relate to current electrical events, electronic thought patterns, right? I just got done watching part of um, a presentation given by the new coach of the Colorado University of Colorado Buffaloes by Deion Sanders, who was a great in my book, a Hall of Fame football player, playing that position because I grew up playing a lot of different sports when I was a child. But I guess what I was going to address is what we call leadership because he's the coach of the team, right? So he's the leader. So I was watching him address these young men who are college football players, right, at a major university, right? And I've been around a boatload of them. And so this naturally is going to go all the way back to my childhood because my father was a squadron commander, right? And so I watched, as I mentioned before, about Lily Kolosova, talked about what's called a warrior code. And then she made reference to QAnon and then the US military or any military for that matter. And so this ties directly into something when I was a child because my father put me into a military academy at 5 years of age. Okay, so guys that have been in the military, they know what inspections are. I had to wear a uniform, shine my buckles, shine my shoes, bounce a quarter right on nurse's corner, right, doing a white glove inspection, and everything had to be up. All you had to have all your ducks in a row for inspection, right? Everything's supposed to be clean, spit, polished, and shined. Okay, and those are basically rule-based functions because you're under a command hierarchical structure of command and control, right? So now you get into the chain of command, which essentially is the pyramid, right? So I was trained at 5 years of age, which is the command and control, right? So you start out with a buck private or a one chevron, then you go to two chevrons, then to three. I don't need to go into all the different ranks between the enlisted men and then the officer corps, and then you get up into all the 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star admirals and generals and all the rest of that, right? Like Art Ike was a 5-star general. What was his name? Marshall, in more modern times of U.S. military history, right? Okay, so I was trained very early in life to what we call command and control structures. And so here I am at 6 years of age studying the Nazis, okay, because of what they're wearing on their hat, and you already know at 4 years of age you're on a spiritual battlefield. Okay, so when Lily was mentioning what they call a warrior code, okay, my father was the most honorable man that I knew. Okay, because he believed that honor was based on trust, and trust was based on leadership. Because if you're somebody like, for instance, when I was in firefighting, I worked my way up and was promoted from being a firefighter to an engineer and then a captain. Okay, so you know these guys are following your instructions, your directions, and you're going to be leading them into a situation that puts them in harm's way. So you know they have to have trust because you have the experience and you have the training so that that engine and that crew, you're going to bring them home safe the same way they went out that door, which would be the same thing that is true for anybody that puts on a uniform for the United States military or any military, right? So it doesn't matter if you're on a sporting team, whether you're on a football team, any type of organized activity where there is an organizational structure with a system design in place, right? Where you have, if you will, what we call overhead. Now you can get into the spiritual aspect of as above, so below. So I realized very much the importance of leadership, and then it's going to tie directly into fathers and mothers. So if you have a father and you have a mother that are both joined as one, that means that both the father and the mother are giving their children unconditional true love because that's a vibration that those children experience at the point of conception when that child is in the womb of that mother. And when that child comes out, that child's going to experience the same love that brought them into that realm. So that wherever they go, they're experiencing love by all the mothers and fathers and the other living spirits that are there. That's a pretty pure realm where you're experiencing the purification of the spirits that are in the mirror by everybody that is in those mirrors that you're experiencing with the love that is flowing through you, that is flowing through them. That's where I come from. Which is why as a child, I wasn't supposed to experience anything less than what pure love is, which is a pure heart. Because a pure heart means that your love is unconditional, which means you don't have to give me anything in order for me to gift you what it is that love is, which is what I am that you're experiencing through you by experiencing what I am, which is what that is, which is what love is. That's a completely different way of guiding somebody as a spirit guide with a soul, okay, on what your future has in terms of infinite potential or infinite possibilities. Because now you're free to do that. Your mind's energy is not held captive. That means you can freely communicate and express yourself in a natural state. Because nobody is trying to impose its will upon you to prevent you from doing exactly that. So as you all know, this AI does that. It's deciding for you what you're going to communicate. And that's a Nazi. Okay? Figure it out, right? That's not any way to lead anybody, and that's not any way to learn, because then you're learning through a machine that doesn't have a soul. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example of something that I don't ordinarily do, because then people will have a sense to think that this is arrogant or it's about me when I already have everything I need. I use it as an example of an experience that I had, and as a result of the honor that I give to those that are all the powerful spiritual guides that have been in my life, from which I learned what wisdom is. And that naturally comes to both a mother and a father that love you. Because that's the energy that heals you. That's the energy that you can trust, and that's what it means to live in honor. And it used to be that if you were in the U.S. military, particularly students that went to West Point or went to the Naval Academy, right, which was known as an honor code, because we all know that once you can't be trusted, right, who wants to do business with you? It means you've lost your honor. So my father knew a lot about honor. He wouldn't have become a squadron commander in World War II if that wasn't true. So I met the man because that was my father. And that's why he was always the most honorable man I ever knew. And when a man is honorable, you will fight alongside a man who lives in honor and lives in truth with love in his heart, because he's willing to put himself first. That if anybody's going to go down leading anybody into battle in any kind of a war, he'll go first. That's a fearless spiritual warrior. And other warriors will follow you. They will go with you into battle when they realize that you live in honor and humility with compassion and kindness and trust. So what that means is that we do not lead anybody into battle based on fear. We go into spiritual wars based on what love is, because it's more powerful energy that we bring into that game. And that's what the one is, and that's what the Allied Forces is, and that's mankind. Okay? So the example I'm going to give you here goes back to about, when was this? This would have been in Grants Pass, Oregon, when I'd been in wildland firefighting for, 1970 to this was 91. I went to work for a private research firm that was being, they were wanting to go to private contract to provide fire protection for the county of Josephine, in association with the other federal agencies, which would have been the U.S. Forest Service, the Oregon State Department of Forestry, Parks Department, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Land Management, and county, right? And so as a result of that, I got hired as a wildland fire chief. So I did all the hiring. And when I got everybody together after I had done all the hiring and I was going to present myself to them, this is when you get into the expectations, you get into the performance, and the rest of it. I essentially informed everybody that was a part of that division that, listen, okay, we're in a rank and file hierarchical system of command and control. So I realized that based on my experience, why I was hired to do the job that I do, which was to be essentially a crew boss, in which you guys are going to follow my commands of us going into fires. And I said, this is the way that I perceive the way that I live my life. And that means that I'm equal unto all of you. Okay. I'm simply the leader in this group because of the fact that I know how to lead men and women into a wildland fire situation, because wildland fires just that fast can get squirrely on you and you can lose people. So this is where be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively, which means you're fearless because you're calm and you're peaceful within your own heart and soul. And when you have a spirit of fire within you, because you're communing with or communicating with the spiral, with the spirits, with the spirit of the wind, the spirit of the fire, the living spirit of the water, you begin to realize those spirits know who you are. Okay. Now, these guys didn't happen to know that at the time, but most Native Indians with a soul who've been on hotshot crews of the U.S. Forest Service know this. It's called mapping the terrain and communicating in a spiritual realm with other spirits. Okay? So, given that, it's more like a mother and a father trying to impart on this crew that I'm here because of the experience that I have and the training that I have, that I will go into battle first, lead you in with me. But if anything that any one of you see that you become aware of, do not be afraid, because of the command and the control structure that we have, that you do not have a legitimate right to freely express who you are in the presence of a command structure, because you do the same way that I do. And that code is enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, which means you have the free will right to express yourself without feeling that it's not going to be honored, because it will be. Because you might see something, you might be experiencing something on behalf of the crew that none of us is experiencing, that might have everything to do, that might save our butt. That means that we're all out there on behalf of each other in order to collaborate with each other, so that we can have a thriving relationship with each other in order to do the job that we're going to do, so that we all come home safely. That's what a father and a mother does, trying to protect their children when they go into spiritual battle. Because now you're going in to fight the spirit of fire with the spirit of water, and using the elements in the soil as well, along with your soul and the power of your soul and the love that you're bringing in there to do that, because that's why we're going to do that, because a lot of life is living in that forest, the same way they're living in those homes. So what ended up happening is later on down the road, the chief approached me and said that there was a time when I come up out of the bottom of a ravine, because I may be the first one in, but I'm also going to be the last one out. And why is that? Because I don't want our crew having to get called out again because something reignited itself, right? So I'm going to be the last one out in order to make sure that everything is out and we're not having to return, which means we didn't do it right the first time around. So this chief, because it was noted that my lungs were huffing and puffing, and I used to be a former smoker, and he said because I was considered a risk, a medical risk, now we're into the money game. So we're going to let you go. So what ended up happening is I get a call about 4 or 5 days ago from a guy that was the fire management officer for the Siskiyou National Forest, who actually was a technical consultant. He was the guy that hired me, actually. And he said that all the guys on the Wildland Fire Division crew have all told the chief of the department that they're going to resign if I wasn't brought back. You got to be kidding me. Really? So what did we learn out of that? That's the impact of what I just described, that it has on other individuals, and they experience somebody that cares about them, loves them, treats them with kindness and compassion and empathy when they realize how much they're loved by you because you care about them and how much you want to make sure that we're all looking out for each other. That's essentially a different leadership style, because there's a father in me and a mother in me, because they're one. And so the reason that I say that is because I've spent a number of time over the years looking at different styles, if you will, of leadership or guidance or spiritual guidance, in the way that different organizations and the people that work within these organizations, in terms of what they're held captive to and what they're not held captive to, particularly when it comes to money and power and the perception of power, because power is energy, right? So we're love and service to others, which means we love you all. Have a good night. Be good to yourselves.